Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Tonight, we welcome back the co-host of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, one of my favorite podcasts, and a very talented writer. Please welcome Ben Wan. Ben, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while because
Yeah, we've been
we
developing
keep
this for a
missing
bit.
each other because we have our projects.
hmm Yeah, for sure. So I'm glad to be
Yeah,
back on here so we can sort of dive into it. And there's probably some stuff that we just won't be able to get to because it's, still kept on the down low. But,
yeah,
we can still
absolutely.
talk about it offline.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, but some things have to be, stay between us. Okay. Last time you were on, we were talking about alter ego,
hmm
and you just completed issue one. Now issue two has been released, and issue three is coming up at some point.
Yeah. Sometime later this year, it is probably about halfway through the, production stage with art and letters. So I've been pretty happy with this. And we are, aiming to finish the first four issues. If not the end of the year, then the beginning of next year. And that would complete like the first chapter in this
Yeah,
saga.
yeah, because that's where we talked about it. Because last time you said that you're splitting. It's gonna be an ongoing series, but it's split into chapters.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of was using this to get my feet wet when it came to just creating comics, getting issues out there. And then as I went further, I was like, you know what, for the sake of future writing and to kind of do the rest of the saga, it might make more sense once I'm done with like those first four issues and I've gotten sort of used to it to, release that as volume one. And then from then on, it's just these graphic novel size versions of volume two, three, four and five. So that like everybody sort of gets a little bit more of their what feels a little bit more of their money's worth in
Yeah,
getting a full volume worth of stuff, and that way I can really figure out or condense. Okay, what really do I want to have here?
yeah,
Because it's it would be a huge undertaking to try to do like 100 200 issues just by myself. So I was like, you know what, let me just really figure out what is the most important stuff in the story to go through so that it moves quickly. There's no stuff that people are just like, oh, that's just filler to pass the time. And then you get the complete story in 5 volumes that you can pick up, have a complete thing. And if it ever gets adapted into stuff that people want to like expand on with certain characters and subplots, then cool. But at least the major arc, the major story beats would all be there.
yeah. It's interesting you talk about filler issues because we've seen this obviously in comics before, where
Mhm.
writers tend to add filler issues where it doesn't really have to do with the main plot, but maybe some of the other characters. So it's actually gratifying that you're here that it's going to be one full story because sometimes the filler is helpful in between the action, but other times it just doesn't work out.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think if there's a place for it, it would potentially be ones where if things really go well with like these 5 volumes and there's a question for more, I could do like little, sort of an anthology type of thing, just like, hey,
Yeah,
like, and go back and forth in time in terms like, okay, this is like a prequel installment of what happened to this character, and this is a like something that happened in between these volumes, like that type of thing, so that it's sort of like, hey, here's all the stuff that would have been filler issues, but sort of an anthology. If you really love these characters, then this story is for you for that specific character.
okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
Okay, so definitely be on the lookout for Alter Ego issue three. Issues one and two are now available on Amazon.
Mhm. Mhm.
Since we actually have your website up, let's just take a look at your other comic.
Sure. So we released Musashi and Son as well, or are you talking about the issue for Alter
No,
Ego?
no. They here we go. There we go.
Musashi and Son. Okay.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So this is a manga that we released earlier this year in January. This is completely different from Alter Ego. So Alter Ego, for those who might not have caught the last episode or aren't familiar with it, that's basically a very much in the vein of an Escape from New York type of story with supervillains, Game of Thrones with supervillains, that type of thing. Main character is a henchman who goes undercover to take down the 5 families of this sort of wasteland that's been taken over by the supervillains. Musashi and Son, completely different, almost even completely different medium if you consider, manga to be slightly different from American comics, but no superpowers here, no supernatural. This is the sort of a historical fiction take on Miyamoto Musashi, who's a real life samurai from the feudal Japan era, most famous samurai. Arguably wrote the Book of Five Rings that we still read today in martial arts. It's basically number 2 behind the Art of War in terms of like the most republished martial
Wow.
arts, like Asian, warfare type of work that's been written out. So Musashi and Son came about when I was introduced to Musashi just from doing martial arts,
Mm.
and I wanted to learn a little bit more about his history and his story, especially like going through the Book of Five Rings, and it came across this story of him meeting this boy, and the boy was sharpening a sword, and he was wondering what was going on with this boy sharpening the sword, and somebody who's so young who's doing this, what's going on. He probably maybe sensed that there was a fellow warrior spirit inside that boy, and so he asked him, and the boy brought up that his father had died the other day, and he was an orphan, and he, being a very small boy, was too small and not strong enough to carry his body, his father's body, up a hill to get to the
Mm.
top of the cemetery to bury him next to his mother. So he's sharpening the sword for a very dark, morbid practicality, which is that I'm going to cut my father's corpse in half so that I can do it in 2 trips.
Wow.
And Musashi said, "How about you sheath the sword and you have me help you carry your father's body up the hill?" And so they buried the father together. And apparently, according to legend, from then on, Musashi decided, I'm going to adopt this boy and train him to be a warrior. And eventually, Yori is his name. And Yori ended up becoming a samurai himself and ended up serving a lord. And together they fought in this major battle later on when Yori was a grown adult. And so I was like, I want to know the rest of the story. I want to be able to flesh it out because there's very little that's actually out there in terms of what happened other than just the beginning and kind of the end where like Yori was, fighting alongside him. What is that story? And so I came up with the idea of, okay, what if this is an ongoing series where the boy's father isn't just dead, his father was murdered by bandits, and Musashi is he's kind of wondering, why is Musashi just so ready to be like, all right, I'm going to adopt this as my son just immediately off the bat.
Yeah.
And I figured part of that was because, oh, like, you are untrained, you're gonna die if you go up against them. So I'm going to train you to go to do that. And maybe there's a little bit of Yori that reminds Musashi of himself or the young version of him, as well as some other motivation that I can't reveal until like volume 2. But in volume 1, at least, um, that's what it seems to be. And so these two kind of become the samurai Batman and Robin, going from village to village to hunt down these bandits, as well as ending up through Yori's, insistence, almost becoming heroes in some way of like going from hunting down bandits to like trying to save the innocent people or the villagers. And so you have different arcs going on where you have this boy who's like kind of starts off as somewhat innocent. Sure, he's got like a darker side to him, and that darker side gets fed a little bit further by Musashi so that he could become a warrior and be able to survive in this world. Whereas Musashi himself is this very harsh guy who doesn't understand children or doesn't understand how to work, and he gradually becomes more and more of a father, and so that becomes the dynamic. They both sort of grow in their own ways and balance each other out, and each fight that they have or each chapter that we have here is kind of pushing them further and further into that journey. So the first volume is out, and it's called The Ring of Earth because in the Book of Five Rings, Earth is the first ring. And so once again, we're going to shoot for 5 volumes. Volume 1 is the Ring of Earth. The next one I can reveal because it's the second one in the Book of Five Rings is Water. So that'll be taking place right afterwards, and that's currently in the works. I've got the same artist, Ira V, working on Volume 2 as we speak for the beginning portion of it. I'm still writing the rest of it, but I got her started on it, and we've been happy working together. And everybody I show this cover to really loves this artwork, and I love it too with what you put
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Because it really gets you in the mood of that particular time period, and also, yeah, because and also people are just fascinated by this time period and also manga in particular. So
Mhm,
yeah, why wouldn't people like this?
mhm.
And the way you describe the story, it's very fascinating because I never heard the story myself. So you're introducing me to a new thing, and now I have to read it just to see what happens.
Mhm. Yeah. We
So
start.
yeah,
We have
so
up.
yeah,
Yeah, what I have up on the website, you can scroll through if you want, but I have some of the opening pages, and we kind of start where a lot of Musashi's stories kind of end. A lot of Musashi stories end with his most famous duel, which is him going up against Ganryu is kind of the nickname that he was named, but that was his main rival. You know, there's this big beach battle between the two of them. It's his most famous duel. Um, when when they did the movies or when they did like this long novel about Musashi, it ended with that duel.
wow,
Musashi and Son begins with that duel. It begins with that. Partially because I want to show like, hey, this is who Musashi is, and we are starting at a different point from where everything else is. But the other aspect is story wise, it pays off later. There's a reason why I show you this duel in the beginning, outside of just an introduction to Musashi. But once
yeah,
again, you're going to have to read volume one to find out. So like
definitely,
that's all sort of planted in here, and again, she did a great job with the art, with this duel, and having the two up against each other, and bringing this famous duel to life in our own way because it's been done several times beforehand in movies and TV shows, and this is something that when I first saw how she did it, I was like, yes, this is definitely going to work.
yeah. Wow, this is incredible.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Musashi and Son, and yeah, you can get it on Amazon just like with Alter Ego, and Volume Two's in the works.
Okay, now I had to go some. I had to do some shopping later on. So thank you for that, Ben. Thank you for that. I was gonna buy it anyway. So there you go.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. Yeah. So this is very exciting. But you've also been busy with our friend Tim Maxwell at Neuverse Creative,
Mhm.
doing a couple of projects, Batman themed.
Yes.
Not only writing them, but also voicing them.
Yeah, so that's been a big thing. That's also happened since the last time that you and I talked, which was kind of there before where I was I narrated Batman 89 Shadows. I was like a bit part in the Case of the Chemical Syndicate. And there were certain ones that were narrated by the Batman actors at that time where I just knew I wasn't really going to be involved because it was only just going to be one guy. So like the Batman Blowback was a new one that was released a little bit after the last time we had an episode, and I knew that was all going to be Tim as the voice of the Pattinson Batman.
Yeah.
But for lately, one of the things that, or one of the big projects that we knew that we really wanted to do, and I think Tim had asked me back in, I want to say like 2022. It was a long time ago.
Wow.
But he said, "Hey, do you think you could take a crack at doing Batman Forever, the original scripts, but we would perform it in the style of the Tim Burton verse. So it would be a Michael Keaton actor, it would be a Billy D. Williams type actor for Two Face, Robin Williams type actor for the Riddler, that type of stuff." And I was like, "Sure, absolutely, this would be awesome." And writing wise, I went through because it's kind of I say this on the website, but it's difficult for me to say I wrote it because all I really felt like I did was do the fanboy thing of like, okay, I have these different drafts of Batman Forever, let me pick and choose what my favorite parts are, and then put it all together, and then put it in audio form. So that ended up being the process, and I think I submitted it to him end of 2022, beginning of 2023, or something like that. And I knew it was going to be a big endeavor because it's a long script, it's a feature length script,
Yeah.
and you would kind of expect it to be maybe not as long as the movie, but to be around the same length as some of the other ones that he's done on the channel. I mean, the you did the Batman 89 one, and that was like an hour or so. So
Yeah.
like this one had to be that. We went way over and that's sorry, Tim. But and there were certain things too where like maybe it wasn't important to the story, but there were a ton of references to the previous Burton films that were cut from the script, and I wanted to put all of them in there just because like, hey, if we're going to say this is performed as if this is a little bit closer to the style of the Burton movies, it'd be a disservice for me to not have those. And especially considering the fact that this is audio, right? This is audio being produced by people who aren't literally Michael Keaton and Robin Williams and Billy D. Williams. So, like, you kind of have to have a little bit more of that flavor too, on top of, actors who are being sound alikes and stuff. So, I submitted that to him, and I expected that that was going to take a while, considering how long that was going to be. And around 2023 was when he released the first couple trailers for Batman 3, as well as your Batman Enigma.
Yeah.
And you can hear an early version of that at the end of the full length Batman 89 Shadows on YouTube. And then I didn't hear much for a while from Tim on that. And I just kind of figured that, it's a big endeavor and maybe I should just write shorter scripts next time. And it was towards the end of last year or beginning of this year or so, he started sending me some clips, and I thought, okay, this sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. And I just sort of generally understood I would have just written it and then let the cast do what they need to do, until suddenly at one point Tim asked me, he's like, hey, like, I think you could probably do Michael Keaton. And I was like, don't you have a guy for that? And so he kind of explained to me that Brett Solferino, who has done Michael Keaton for the channel, and you can hear
Yeah.
him in all pretty much most of the other ones, and he's the one that you hear in the trailer. He's just gotten too busy to continue doing voice acting, and he just wasn't able to complete his lines for this project or for Enigma. And so Tim was on the lookout for another Michael Keaton, and apparently I didn't know this until we talked recently, but he had asked around for a lot, and somehow for some reason he thought that there was a little bit of Keaton in my own natural speaking voice, which I was just like, okay, I don't know about that, but I'll take it. But it was intimidating though, because it's like I want to do it, but at the same time I don't want to just, like, is there a desire for it? Sure, of course, but is like, could I actually do it? We'll see. So I had to spend a while just sort of looking at clips, and obviously I knew the movies, but I've never looked at the movies in the sense of like, oh, can I try to do that type of voice? And so at one point I listened to Brett's version, and I was like maybe halfway through, and it was one of the ones that I had previously written that he did, and he did a great job. But I was also just like, I stopped it because I'm just like, I'm not going to be able to do it just like he does, because he has a very natural Keaton sounding impression. It's
Yeah.
just his natural voice. And so I was like, okay, I can't do it the same approach. I have to do it my own way. And I realized that the only way that I could do it was if Brett Solferino sounds like Michael Keaton, I'm going to act like it in terms of the nuances to it, in
Yeah.
terms of like trying to pick up on the pauses and the way that he differentiates Bruce and Batman a little bit more, a little bit more of the raspy whisper type of thing when he's
Yeah.
Batman. And then Bruce Wayne is somebody who his cadence is very much what I just did right now, where it's like it's kind of choppy. He's always sort of like thinking in a certain way, and kind of like what Adam West said about his own version, but not quite as exaggerated. So
Yeah.
I, the way that he says his S and T sounds and stuff like that, and certain things too, where I was just like, hey, like, a lot of people remember you want to get nuts type of scene,
Yeah.
and people remember that face, the type of face, but it's a hissing type of face is what I
Yeah.
realized. And so sometimes to create that effect vocally, because nobody's seeing this, um, you have to sort of hiss a little bit. I extend the S's compared to how I usually talk when I'm Michael Keaton, because that's it creates that effect in some way. Um, or sometimes the way that I noticed that the way that he does the T sound, especially if there's a TS, it's like his tongue stops a little bit more on his teeth than mine does. So like, even though you can kind of tell it's me at times, like I varied it up with sort of how I I picked up on sort of those sorts of things. And so I sent an audition to Tim with a whole bunch of lines to give him choices. The first stuff was stuff from The Flash, actually. It was Old Man Keaton, because I felt like that was the one I could slip into the easiest. You
Yeah.
want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like,
Yeah.
just sort of going low. But then I'm like, he doesn't quite go that low or gravelly in the previous movie, so I have to differentiate it. And so I realized I could lean a little bit more into the whisper. like he does that little whisper type of thing. And then Bruce Wayne was the toughest because then it's just like, okay, I can't really do the the gravel. I can't do the gravelly voice or the whisper there because he's supposed to be Bruce Wayne. But I don't want to just kind of talk like myself the entire time. I want to create stuff, and that's where a lot of the pauses or the little nuanced stuff came in, especially what I call the preamble. So it's like, well, you know, like that sort of type of stuff that he adds in. And I threw that in to the audition, and at the same time too, I know we'll get into Batman Forever. It was just a lot easier to sound like Val Kilmer on some of the lines, because the lines that I was reading were from Batman Forever, and so I would try to read them off in a Keaton voice, especially when it was a long monologue that Kilmer had done. First off, Keaton was not known for doing long monologues, and he was famously cutting out dialogue. The most monologue stuff that he had was as Bruce Wayne with telling the Joker the whole lead up to the "you want to get nuts" scene. So it was just much easier to slip into a Kilmer voice on Kilmer's lines that I had ingrained in my skull since I saw that when I was 7. And so I told Tim, like, hey, like, you cool if I try to go for Kilmer too? And it wasn't really an expectation of like, you should cast me in both, but more of just like, I kind of feel like I'm just closer to that. Like maybe it's, even though I'd love to do both, but I'll leave you to decide. And so I did some of the same lines as Kilmer. And I thought, if I'm lucky, maybe he'll give me one of them. He'll give me one of those. And I got very lucky because he came back and he was just like, if you want to do it, it's yours. And so, and not only that, but obviously I knew Enigma was coming up, and that was another one, and it was a very intimidating prospect, not just for the audition, but now the idea that I'm going to have to do it, and I'm not only in the shadow of Keaton, but I'm in the shadow of a previous actor who had done a Keaton so well that a lot of comments when you see those previous audio dramas, it's always just like, oh, like your voice actor sounds just like Keaton and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who people are just like, I was liking your Keaton stuff on the channel until you brought this new guy in, and like, he can't do it. What were you guys thinking? Let's bring the old guy back. So I've got that, and then I know the other one that's up ahead is yours, and I don't want to screw yours up either. So if you think too much about it, you go crazy. So I was like, you know what? Let me just focus on. If you just focus on the work, if you just focus on, okay, how would Keaton do this? What types of things can I add to it? And you just do your best shot. It helps. It helps with that. You just hope people like it, and you use the director, in this case Tim, to tell you like, hey, like maybe do another take at that, or like maybe do this or that, and that type of stuff. And I just kind of had a leap of faith, and so I've been very happy with people's responses to the Keaton stuff. I personally, like I said, it was easier for me to slip into Kilmer, so I expected a lot more comments about my Kilmer voice, and instead I got a lot more about Keaton. So I don't know. Like, I'm doing both of the channel at this point. So.
Yeah, something worked. I remember Tim saying me the line reading from Enigma. Because I knew you were casted already. You were recording your lines. I think Tim was like, "Oh, I hope he likes him. I really hope he likes him." So I gotta tell you, when I heard you in your Batman voice and your Bruce voice, I was like, "Wow, that's spot on."
Oh, thanks.
So I was like, "Yeah, he's perfect. He's good. I had no worries." Because Ben, I have to be honest, I was not worried one bit. I actually wasn't. But when I heard your test, I was like, okay. It was that sigh of relief, just I was like, that's it. He's got it. He knows what he's doing. He's got it. And I trust him because I'm like, Tim would not have cast you if he didn't know what he was doing. So he definitely knew what he was doing when he cast you as Batman in these projects.
Thank you. Yeah. And Tim brought up a point to me too, where he knew, especially because for something like Batman 3, he knows like I wrote it, and so I want to make sure it's good too. And I wouldn't have even gone for it if I didn't think, okay, if I can't even get in the ballpark, I'm just it's not going to be right for the project. Because my ego could try to make me try to do all the other Batman for the channel, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can do a George Clooney. Like, I think we're good. I think I'm good with my
Yeah.
my favorite childhood Batman. I think I'm good on Batman. I don't think I need to necessarily do everybody.
No, no,
So
no.
yeah.
But yeah. Um, I know we've been kind of, dodging Batman Forever for a minute, so we're gonna have to
Mhm.
talk about it.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I can't tell you how relieved I was when I heard that there was gonna be a Batman Forever one, but the Schumacher cut, and you guys had just released this what, maybe a couple weeks ago? Would you say
Yeah,
that's fair?
like maybe like a month ago. It was beginning of March. So yeah.
Yeah. We could not have known, folks, what had happened, unfortunately, this past week with Mr. Kilmer's very tragic passing. We could not have foreseen this whatsoever. And when I was listening to your performance again, I was like, "Yep, he's definitely hitting Kilmer in the right notes." Then I'm seeing a lot of the comments, and people are liking this performance as well. Obviously, in lieu of what has happened, but yeah, I obviously made changes in between this version and the previous version
Mhm.
because this was definitely from one of the earlier drafts of Forever. But yeah, I can't say enough kind words about both projects. I just love them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I it's one thing to do the Batman 3 where it was a lot of Bruce Wayne and a lot of me cursing the writer version of me for giving myself so much at the same time. Not because I didn't want so to, but I was just like, couldn't I have done a different project first? Like because it was one where I always have felt from the times that I've played the role vocally that Bruce Wayne is a harder role for me than Batman because Batman, uh, a lot of the times he's either angry at somebody or he's giving exposition, whereas like Bruce is always hiding stuff. And
Yeah,
then in particular with Batman 3 and the Batman Forever script, he's reliving his trauma. He's really going through a lot emotionally. And I knew the Batman 3 script would put the Keaton actor through an emotional ringer that you just didn't end up seeing him get to in the Burton movies. So to then have that turn around on me and be like, okay, the actor who's going to have to do that is you, was kind of a like tables of turn type of moment. And with Batman Forever, there was kind of a little bit of relief because not only had I done this exact part before with the same script, but it was one where like we have a Kilmer performance. Like
yeah,
I kind of like part of me was just like, couldn't I have done Kilmer first instead of Keaton, just so that like I could do a little bit of like drawing off of what was already there in the movie, and so this one felt a little bit easier to slip into just because of the fact that there is an existing Kilmer, there is an existing Kilmer performance for this specific script, but also like you've experienced with the audio drama, it goes into its own different directions. Not all the lines from the movie are in there, or there's different lines from the movie,
yeah,
and not all the time can I just go into an impression. And there were times where I would just pull up the movie and just pause it after every like line reading to be like, okay, I got to sound like that. And then over time, I'm just like, what am I doing? Let me just do it the way that I would do, and not worry so much as long as it sounds like it. Sounds like his voice delivering it, then it's fine. It doesn't have to be the exact delivery. So there's some stuff earlier on where I think I might have tried to lean a little bit too much into sounding just like how he did it. And then
yeah,
I think a little bit further on, I think I made it a little bit more of my own thing. And I think too, because Batman 3 was the first time I was Keaton and Batman Forever was the first time that I'm Kilmer, you kind of iron out the kinks a little bit and you're ready for the next one. So it's kind of cool that that Enigma was the one that I did afterwards for
yeah,
Keaton's, because now I kind of like, okay, I've kind of gotten to the groove. But yeah, this one obviously, like I had no idea what was going to happen to Val or the release, because we just thought, hey, this is the 30th anniversary of Batman Forever. Be
yeah,
awesome to release both versions this year. And when I got hit with the news, obviously it was shocking, just like with everybody else. But for me in particular, there was a certain weight that suddenly was there where it was just like, oh, like we have a few other adventures with Kilmer on the channel that I already recorded,
Yeah.
and it's going to be seen or heard in a new light. And this audio is going to be heard in a new light. Like people might even be listening to this as as you did after his death, as a way to sort of remember him, and to be the person who's emulating that late actor. It suddenly dawns on you how much weight there is in terms of wanting to honor that performance, to honor that version of the character, to honor him as an artist. And in some ways, I'm kind of grateful I've already recorded those those beforehand, so that I don't like it doesn't trip me up too much in it, and that the next time, because there will be other ones too, but the next time
Yeah.
we record, it will be kind of a little bit more when I'm a little fully processed it, and a little bit more like, okay, I think we're ready to step in and step into those shoes. But for the
Yeah.
time being, it was one where like the I think I might have been the first one to deliver the news to Tim too. And I was like, man, like
Oh,
we people are going to hear this in a different light, and maybe like in a good way as well. But also, I told him we have to dedicate this next one to him, um, the next one that we do, which I can't really talk too much about. I can tell you a little bit later,
yeah.
but
Obviously.
we can't really tell much about. But it is one that I think is a very special one, and it's one that I'm happy to see as like our tribute to Val's performance. And I hope other people see it the same way too when they hear it, and that we did right by him.
Well, I think you're willing because you guys really delivered something here. Um, just listening to this on the drive in my car,
Hmm.
when I heard the news, I was like, wow. Because it took me back to 1995 where I was sitting in a movie theater with my dad
Hmm.
and my brother just watching this movie, for the first time. Yeah, because that's what this particular argument does for me, as well as the other ones. They take you back to your childhood and
Hmm.
just remembering, certain things about this very iconic movie.
Hmm.
And I have to tell you, he was a very underrated Batman. I was like, he did a solid job. He did a solid job as Batman. He did a solid job as Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
So just listening to this again, and I just listened to it again today.
Oh,
You
awesome.
know, yeah, it does take you back to your childhood. So I was very appreciative of that, and I'm pretty sure the hardcore fans, especially the ones who are, looking for the Snyder cut to be released in theaters, will actually, look at this and say, you know what? Even if we didn't get,
Oh,
a
the Schumacher
complete
cut. Yeah.
version of the movie, we
Hmm.
got the only drama.
Hmm. Yeah, and that was our hope too, because we have no control over that. But for this one, I wanted to make sure, like in the writing of it, we have everything, all the Bruce Wayne subplot. Because at the time, I wasn't really sure if they even shot all of it. I was like, okay, we have the existing footage of him in with a giant bat, but I don't know if it has all the other components that need to make that work beforehand, because we didn't have access to all the deleted scenes.
Yeah,
Apparently, they did. They did shoot it, apparently, according to the people who have seen it at these Kevin Smith screenings. But
yeah,
at the time that I was writing it, like we have no idea. Like maybe not. And so this might be the closest that we get to bringing that to life in some way. And I'm glad we did. And I'm super happy with both. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
yeah. Oh,
Hey, Leander.
yeah. I noticed him because he started following me and started liking a lot of my stuff.
Nice.
I'm
Well,
guessing that's your agent, right?
yeah, that's my manager, Leander. He's been a big supporter of mine. He's been with me at each of the LA Comic Cons that we've been at to do panels, and he'll be at the future ones too. So, huge supporter of mine. Thanks, dude.
I got to come out to that. I got to come out there just to see you guys in action.
Hopefully. Uh,
Okay, I knew this was gonna happen. I knew this was gonna happen. Okay, I can tell you a little bit, guys, what's happening.
okay,
Um,
go ahead, because this might be news to me.
yeah, obviously, Ben is playing Batman in Batman Enigma.
Hmm.
Um, I gotta tell you this, guys, because Tim, I'm pretty sure will appreciate this. we're turning it into a motion comic.
Yep.
You're gonna get an audio drama, yes, but you're also gonna get a motion comic. So, yeah, I was completely floored when he pitched this to me, and it was welcoming news. And you get to see, just my own work and Eric Elliott and Paul Brian McCoy's words. It might include come to life in such a way that you haven't experienced. So I'm very excited about that. As to when it's being released, it's being worked on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when the release date is because I'm the writer. It's out of my hands at this point. I will say I did record a couple of lines in there,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm in it as well. And I'm in another audio drama, which we'll talk about at some point. Not now, no, but other one. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you like it.
I was Tim gave me the heads up on that. I've been keeping it on the down low, but if you're down to announce it, then awesome. Honestly, my first reaction to that was just like, couldn't have told me that when I was recording the lines. But no, I mean it's awesome, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, from a sort of vain actor's perspective, of just like, oh man, now it's going to actually be my voice paired with the Keaton likeness from your comics. So I'd reread through the your Batman Enigma beforehand when I was recording it, so that I would know, okay, like this is what I'll be looking at and that type of stuff. But now it's just like, oh, like this makes a lot. This is even more sense. Makes even more sense to pair it with it because of the fact that like your stuff exists, like the motion, the fan comic exists. Why wouldn't
Yeah,
you pair this up in some way? You could
yeah,
imagine people, and I'm sure this is the intention, right? Listening to the audio drama and reading through the motion. I mean, reading through the comic, but why not just kind of combine it?
exactly.
Why not just skip those steps and just make it one thing? And I thought that was great. I don't know why Tim's adding more work for himself, but I think that's great. So like,
I think
well,
Tim's just a fan. He's just a fan as
he
well.
is, yeah.
Also, I think he likes the challenge because I've noticed this when working with him. I'm sure he knows this as well.
Mhm.
He does like to challenge himself with each project because what seems to me is they get bigger and better each time.
Yeah. This one, I mean, with the last two of Batman 3 and Batman Forever, from like an editing standpoint, I thought he had reached a whole new level, especially with how he incorporated the Elfman music in Batman 3. Because,
Yeah,
in the Batman Forever Schumacher cut audio drama, like you said, it is meant to bring you back to when you were a kid, bring you back to nostalgia. It's building off of an existing movie. We're emulating the actors who were there. But Batman 3 is a whole other thing where we're trying to bring to life a fan idea um,
yeah,
in the only way that could really be done. Was is through audio in some way, maybe unless someday we also pair that up with some sort of motion comic. But it's that audio, and the Elfman music really sells it, and just his choices in terms of which music to pair to what. Just the scene in the Batcave with the giant bat being paired to Descent into Mystery is that just made my jaw drop as I was listening to it, and I was like, and I should know what's going on because I wrote this in terms of what I put, but it was like I was experiencing it for the first time, and I just got chills, and that was the scene that I just always re-listened to over and over and over again. Just Simon Mitchell's narration mixed with the Danny Elfman music that Tim mixed together is just wonderful, and then the screech of that giant bat too, the sound
yeah.
effect, it just all works out so well to the point where I revisited the actual deleted scene, and I'm just like, hate to say this, it doesn't hit the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he doesn't bring the quite the same emotions that you get when you hear the Elfman music, and
Mhm,
also just hearing the narration, and you're acting. You're like, wow, we definitely missed something here.
mhm,
So I'm definitely more curious about the Snyder Cut, and hope at some point it gets released. If not, this is definitely the one you guys want to listen to.
yeah, but the Schumacher cut, yeah.
Yeah,
The it's one where I think somebody had, I think Mine Kinzak on YouTube and Twitter did a pairing of what was said to be the temp track on those screenings, and it's
yeah,
Adagio from Alien 3 by Elliot Goldenthal, and it sounds wonderful. But
yeah,
still at the same time, Descent into Mystery it's those chills because that's the Batman theme. Even maybe
Yeah,
not for that specific, for Kilmer specifically outside of the trailers for that movie, but that's the Batman theme. So just to have that paired into it, I'm glad it exists in some form.
yeah, me too. Oh man, Ben, now I kind of want to voice Batman in one of these things. Damn. Ah,
We'll
but
figure
yeah.
something out.
Yeah, but yeah, this is exciting.
I
Yeah, so
told you I'm
Double
not doing
Team.
George Clooney, so if you got a
I
Clooney in
know.
you,
Maybe I'll do Kevin Conroy. Maybe I'll do that.
there's no pressure there at all.
Oh no, no. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you definitely got Batman projects coming up for
Mhm,
Neuverse.
mhm.
Very exciting, especially with Enigma coming out hopefully at some point soon. But you weren't quite done with the voice acting, also co-writing an audio drama. Now were you?
No. So, around this time, sometime last year, I was getting asked to do voices for the Arkham tapes on the Bat feed, where it's a horror movie type of take on Batman characters, and the first one I was Ra's al Ghul.
Mm,
And I'm not really sure what it was about that one, but during that time, one of our supporters and he's a great animator himself, Aaron Quinn reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, like I got, if you're interested, I've got a prospective voice actor type of thing too, if you want." Um, and timing wise, I think maybe it was related to me having just done that. I don't know for sure. You'd have to
yeah,
ask him. But I
yeah,
was like, "Sure, like, what is it?" Because I was curious what it was, and I thought maybe it would just be a bit part in, some other, independent animated original thing. And he was like, "It's The Crow. I want you to audition for The Crow." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and mind you, this was before Keaton and Kilmer. This is before I was being asked to do Keaton and Kilmer. So this was a
yeah,
very intimidating type of ask because of the fact that every Crow actor after Brandon Lee has been just universally hated. Any version of
yeah,
the Crow after Brandon Lee has been universally hated. But Aaron's idea, his vision was an animated, faithful adaptation of the comic book. And I had read that comic book in college, and I hadn't remembered all the story beats, but I remember the emotion. I remember what I felt reading through it. I remember being in like this dark place reading through it, and sometimes a sad place, and sometimes a poignant place, sometimes an angry place, um, that I was there. And he asked me to audition, and the audition was the first page of the comic, which is just all text. And if you have a copy of the comic, you can take a look at that. But it was to sort of recite that, and it's not an easy monologue because of the fact that I don't think it's necessarily meant um, to be read in terms of out loud or performed.
mhm,
So you kind of have
yeah,
to make your own choices there. But I think that's why that was picked as the challenge. And maybe as we get closer to the time, I can talk a little bit more about what brought me into the place and how I came up with the voice there, because I don't think we're ready to really reveal how the crow is going to
yeah,
sound. But
yeah.
um, I I gave it a shot and I sent it over to him, and then maybe like a day or two later, he's like, it was kind of similar with Tim. He's like, if it's yours if you want it. And once again, I was like, why did I do this to myself? So uh, and he also brought up to me, hey, like I know that you're a writer too. Would you be down to go through the script as well and help me with the writing side? He would take the first pass at it, and I would go through it again. And so I was super down. I made sure to get a copy of the comic like maybe a week or so later at my local bookstore, and just go through it and just be ready for when he told me, okay, we're good to go. Like, here's the script, go through your pass, and then and go through it. And it's like I said, it's a huge undertaking because of the legacy that's involved. But with the Crow, I can say that in terms of the approach I have to it is the complete opposite of Batman with Keaton and Kilmer, because with Neuverse Creative, I'm supposed to be Keaton, I'm supposed to be Kilmer, I'm supposed to be that actor. For the
Yeah,
Crow, I made the deliberate choice to be like, I'm not watching anything Brandon Lee did until we're done,
yeah,
because I don't want it to seem like I'm just doing an impression of him. Like, I don't want people to be like, yeah, he's just kind of doing the same thing, or um, seem like it's just in the shadow of that. I mean, he's so iconic that I was like, the only way to really do this, I felt, and I felt this way about the audition too, because I didn't revisit his stuff before the audition. The only way to do this is just do my version of the character, what's in the comic, what's on the page, and go for there and take your risk and take your shot and hope people like it. And so it's a complete opposite approach that I had from Batman. So I'm not going back to the movie and like pausing each time to hear how he did the lines like I did with Kilmer. This time it's like the scene that I've watched the most from The Crow, the '94 movie,
Mhm.
is the one where he sends he sends T-Bird off the bridge, or not the bridge, the dock.
Oh,
And that scene is wonderful, but because it was shot after Brandon Lee's death, that scene is not carried by Brandon Lee, of course. That scene is carried by, I think, is David Patrick Kelly, the guy who plays T-Bird in that. And
yeah.
so that's the most memorable scene to me. But lucky enough, it's one where the Crow doesn't say anything. So I felt very lucky in the sense, because if I had his delivery of a certain thing too ingrained in my head, I'd be trying to impersonate too much. So I was very happy with being asked to do it. We went through the comic together and wrote out the script and went back and forth in terms of different ideas. It is as faithful. It is both faithful and kind of our own spin on certain things. I can say, and it's been wonderful working on it with Aaron, both from a writing standpoint and being directed by him for the animation. But I mean, I've finished recording those some time ago, and I know that he's shown me a little bit. And in fact, I do, on my site, I do have the initial image of
Yeah.
what the Crow was. So you can click on that, so you can show the initial image uh, of Eric. So there we are. This is when he announced that I was cast. Sometime, this might have been last year or so, but yeah, this is when he first announced that I was cast. And I thought, he looks great. This is wonderful. And then today, this is sort of a big moment. Today, he then sends me the poster, and my jaw dropped on this poster because of the fact that it is, um, it looks like it could just be an alternate cover for the comic.
Oh,
To
oh,
me,
oh.
it looks like it. It evokes the James O'Barr comic completely, and I'm excited that this is the poster. So I think if you hit refresh, because I just updated it, you'll see the poster for the Crow.
Okay.
There
Wow.
it is.
Wow. That
That
is
is,
amazing.
yeah, no, I mean, just the emotion in the eyes. It is, for those who might be familiar with this is the Fallen Angel painting, but with the Crow. And I think when Aaron first described that to me, I was like, oh, that is so perfect because of the expression, the expression that would be in the eyes there. And this is pretty much what I thought he was going to do with it. But it's one thing to envision it; it's another thing to actually see it and see
Yeah.
it done. And so this is the poster for it. This is what it looks like, and it couldn't be more perfect. It could not be more perfect.
It's incredible. It says a lot without revealing too much. It says a lot just by the eyes alone.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I can say why. It's going to be a fun project. I really cannot wait to see this.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Ben, I can't thank you enough for coming on to talk to us, to talk to me about all these fantastic things that you're taking part of.
Oh, thank you for having me on, and I look forward to the next time, as well as talking about The Crow when it's released, especially talking about Batman Enigma when that's released,
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
as some of the other stuff that I know that we've kind of sort of been working on semi together, with whether it's
Yeah.
voice acting stuff or
But,
whatever. But
well, I hope to actually have a true writing collaboration with you at some point down the line, whether it's in a comic or in the
Mhm.
audio drama realm. So
Yeah,
hopefully
for
that
sure.
happens soon. But yeah, folks, don't worry. Batman Enigma is coming. I will find out when, but just be a bit more patient.
Hmm.
It'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Before we do go, as always, I like to plug in my own stuff.
Go ahead.
Once again, Codename Hunter issues 1 through 3 is on indieplaid.com. I'm currently working on issue 4. I'm actually going to be reworking some of the digital pencils, so that's going to be very exciting for me because I really want to deliver a very good issue for you guys because you fans who have followed me from the beginning, I want to make sure you get your money's worth. You know.
Mhm.
And of course, on tpublic.com, this is my storefront. Just type in Lil Ian merch, and you can see some of the new designs I have, especially since Easter's coming up. In fact, let's take a look at one of them. This is from one of my characters, Lil Ian, and it's an Easter mystery. And it's part
Nice.
one of three parts.
Oh,
So yeah, you get this in T-shirts, coffee mugs, cell phone covers,
Mhm.
pillows, wall art, the works.
So it's an ongoing story that can be told through T-shirts.
Just in three parts.
Yeah, but it's still, like,
Yes,
that's
yes, it's
amazing.
ongoing. I had to be very creative. I had to get very creative with this.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and it's currently on sale right now. So go to tpublic.com, type in Little Ian merch,
Mhm.
and you can find all these goodies half price.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, I think that's gonna be it for us tonight. Ben, thank you again. Can't wait to have you back on the show. Can't wait to be back on your show.
Oh, yeah.
Superhero stuff you should know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I
Oh,
mean, we'll we'll have a lot to talk about when Enigma comes out. So,
oh yeah. I'm pretty sure I'll be on your show, and you'll be on my show. And we'll be talking about that.
yeah,
Till the
and then we'll
cows
be
come
roping
home.
we'll be roping Tim in for both, as if he's
Oh,
not busy
absolutely,
enough.
absolutely. I'm not leaving him out. In
Yeah.
fact, I'll probably invite Eric Elliott and Paul Brian McCoy on as well because I want to make sure they're covered as well because they're
Oh,
a huge part of the story.
yeah, yeah. No,
And
I'd love to talk
folks,
to Eric again, and I haven't
yeah,
gotten a chance to meet Paul, so that'd be
yeah,
great.
and folks, I can't thank you enough for your continued support. And as always, hit the like button and subscribe. Well, I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night.
Right.